Even as India mourns the sacrifice of 2 soldiers and 1 police officer in Kashmir, at this very moment, there is an attempt to catch the terrorists who inflicted this on our men, our security forces. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story, a special broadcast on that encounter in Anantnag, Kashmir. First, listen in to the sound of drones and explosions at that encounter spot in Kashmir, where undeterred by the grievous loss, security forces are still at it to encircle and arrest and eliminate the terrorists who did this in the last 24 hours. Take a look. Those are deferred visuals, of course, not live images. I should clarify, but it is important to show you those images and also the drones that are hovering in the sky at this moment. And when I say at this moment, I use the phrase loosely. These are deferred images. I'm saying that again and again. We opened this evening's broadcast with these images to say that despite the loss, despite the sense of pain, anguish, and anger, security forces on the ground are still continuing with that operation. Now, India has lost 3 brave heroes, a police officer, a colonel, and a major. We have seen their faces, we know their names, and their images have broken our hearts. Whether it is the image of a father, a police officer himself, walking to his son's body to place a wreath at the feet of his son's body, or it is the image of a colonel holding on to his young child, or it is the news that even the major who has lost his life was also a father to a newborn. These are images that are breaking more than 1 billion hearts, but they're also making Indians very, very, very angry. There are calls now to boycott the cricket relationship with Pakistan. Because remember, it is the Lashkar-e-Taiba offshoot, the TRF, that has taken responsibility for these attacks. So even as we offer our salutations to the men who have died in the line of duty, and remember several others have been injured, this was a joint operation of the army and the police to take out terrorists based on an intelligence input. Officers were walking up a steep hill when terrorists started firing at them. At this moment, as I said, the operation is ongoing, and undeterred security forces are trying to complete that operation. To look at the implication of what has happened, to understand what has happened, and also to talk about what should happen next, let's introduce our panel of experts today. Let me welcome our guests to the program. Joining us on the program is military veteran Brigadier Sandeep Thapar. Welcome to the program, sir. Also joining us is Jammu and Kashmir's former top cop, SP Vaid. He's been very angry on Twitter. We've been seeing his videos. Also joining us is former General Officer Commanding of the 15th Corps, General Hasnain. Welcome to the program again, sir. And also joining us is Strategic Affairs Analyst, Professor Amitabh. Mattoo. Always a pleasure to have all of you with us. You're all people and men who have spent your lifetime working in and on Kashmir, and you have seen this, you have experienced it, you have lost people you love, and we are in this moment again. General Hasnain, I'll start with you. A colonel, a major among the soldiers who have sacrificed their lives. And the army has always led from the front. But it's still atypical when an officer of such a high rank in what is pitched as an operation to take out terrorists loses his life. Your first impression, sir, General Hasnain.
Barkha, firstly, I must commence by expressing my very, very deep regrets. This happens every few months. We've been losing men, and particularly in this case, losing 3 officers. Jammu and Kashmir Police is a part of us. We are a part of the Jammu and Kashmir Police. We are absolutely integrated, right? And losing such officers of 3 officers at one time is very, very paining for anyone who's a veteran of Kashmir. Having said that, I have seen over a period of time. The last was April 2020 when we lost CO21RR. The second time that a battalion had lost a CO, first was Colonel Chauhan in the year 2000. And before that, we have lost COs of 47RR, 42RR, etc. many times. Each time, people say that it is because of the proficiency, it is because of the daredevilry, it is because of our officers that are leading right from the front. I endorse that completely. And I always say the man on the ground knows best. We have trained them to such an extent that no one can do hand holding for them. They are the ones who know best on the ground, and they carry out their operations. In a case like this, every few months, years, something comes up in which a bit of unpredictability happens. Like in this particular case, you found the company commander probably has initiated the operations and based on intelligence. The commanding officer joined in, integrated himself, we're moving together. But unfortunately, intelligence of this kind is never specific. It is always a broad swath of territory which is given to you to say that this is the area where things are likely to happen. So it is just that happens that you get surprised. Many times you surprise the terrorists. More often you surprise the terrorists. When many times the terrorists surprise you. And then that happens. Remember, the initiative is always with the terrorist because he is the one who is in hiding. He is the one who's trying to avoid you. He's not seeking contact. I don't think any terrorist will dare to seek contact with 19RR, the unit which killed Burhan Wani. This is the same unit which killed Burhan Wani, approximately in the same area, Kokernag. So, having said that, I would say we have to take this in the stride. Such losses will take place in the part of operations, but we have to completely support the families and always endorse the actions of our men. Never be critical of them. We can learn our lessons. Effective military lessons will emerge from this. But at the same time, we need to support what they have done for the nation.
Absolutely. And General Hasnain, before I open this up, we're seeing the individual stories, the men behind the numbers, this young father whose own father is a police officer. I'm talking, of course, about Ghulam Hassan Bhat, the father of Humayun Bhat, the deputy SP who lost his life. And we all saw those images of the father walking up to the coffin. I want to ask you, I think it's very significant, and that's why I opened the program with that the operation is still on. We have men injured in the base hospital at this moment. I hope they get well, but we don't know. This operation is still on. This operation is ongoing. And these are deferred visuals. I'm emphasizing again and again, these are deferred visuals. General Singh, this is important. We haven't backed off from this operation.
Absolutely. Barkha, the Indian Army, you can't take down the Indian Army. You will have moments when you are down. That very brief moment when the brave CEO got killed in action, along with his company commander and the very brave police officer, that was just a momentary thing when the Indian Army was down. It rose the very next minute when the men, without their commanding officer, without their officers there, must have responded to, first of all, try and retrieve the bodies of their officers. That itself is one of the most difficult things in these kind of operations. And thereafter, of course, the thing has moved upwards. Response has taken place. I'm told even the para-SF units have landed up there. Surveillance is going on that area to make sure that these people don't get away. Somehow, I'm led to believe that already 2 terrorists are somewhere in the dragnet. No one is going to give this up. This can carry on for 7 days, 10 days, 15 days. There's no problem at all. The Indian Army cannot lose a commanding officer and his men like this and not retaliate and respond against the people who have been responsible.
Yeah. I know, Brigadier Thapar, you had said on Twitter that you wondered why the senior officers were at the front. But in my experience, and all of you are veterans, I've always seen our men in uniform leading from the front. I'll come to you just a moment on that, Brigadier Thapar. SP Vaid, sir, to you first. This is a moment of great anguish. You have led this police force. I've often said that the Jammu and Kashmir police force is in some ways, because of everything they've had to deal with, the bravest police force in the country, just because of what they've had to deal with. And heartbreaking. The dignity of Ghulam Hassan Bhat as he walks to the coffin in which his son's body is lying. He pauses there for only 1 second. 1 second. In fact, can I just play this image, please, if we can? 10 steps. Someone counted. There are 10 steps to the moment when he lays the wreath at his son's feet. And, it was heartbreaking. He doesn't show his emotion. He's a police officer himself. And he shows so much dignity that it just breaks your heart. Vaid, sir, please go ahead, sir, with your thoughts.
Barkha, first of all, my tribute to the martyrs and heartfelt condolences to the families. As you mentioned about Ghulam Hasan, but in fact, seeing him laying wreath moved all of us, and we had worked with him for last 30 years. Ghulam Hasan, what it was an outstanding police officer. He retired only a few years back as a DIG. He has been our colleague for roughly 3 decades, and losing a son, a young son, so handsome, and at such a young age, he has a baby of only a month old. It has
Yes.
moved not only me, all my colleagues, and I think the whole country. Similarly, Colonel Manpreet, look at the Major Ashish. It was so heartbreaking. But
Yeah.
see, let me mention here, we all felt bad about losing officers. See, producing officers like Colonel Manpreet, Major Ashish, and Humayun, it takes years to groom such officers, and it's a big setback. And Indian Army, in its best tradition, has been leading it from the front. Look at Kargil. Uh,
Mm.
so many young officers laid down their life. They knew that death is 100%. So Indian Army is not like Pakistan. You have whiskey drinking generals and only
Mm.
their jawans go. It's not like that. That high tradition of Indian Army continues. And JNK police, let me mention here, we have lost more than 1,700 people, which is a huge number, and injuries to thousands of our officers and jawans, out of which 7 Director General rank officers have been injured. Uh,
Yeah.
Tell me one police force in the country which has 7 DGPs injured, and such a the contribution of JNK police, I think this country must remember. And as far as operation yesterday's operation is concerned, see, uh, uh, Army and JNK police are perfect coordination, and so much of camaraderie. In fact, it's an example for rest of the country. But
Absolutely.
see, what yesterday happened. I personally, out of my experience, apprehend 2 3 things. Number
Mm.
one, sometimes the sources are compromised.
Mm.
Sources have, you know, uh, they, they are sent with a deliberate purpose to drag in uh, the leadership of security forces, so that initially terrorists are able, they know that they will die. Terrorists, they know, but they know they, before death, they wanted a huge damage to the security forces. So such sources uh, at times are compromised. That aspect needs to be taken care of by officers, commanders on the ground. Another thing which I apprehend is, whenever such operation is launched, somebody who's compromised, or some other overground worker leaks the movement of troops, that also can lead to such casualties,
So
because before
I'm
the
sorry,
cordon was laid, or before
I'm so sorry, sir.
on the
I'm
ground,
interrupting you, but
that
yeah.
Colonel Manpreet got in the first breath itself.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, sir, you believe that there has been some sort of intelligence compromise, either the source or a leak. I just wanted to underline what you're saying.
See, these are my personal experiences of 35 years. I am only saying this aspect needs to be seen by the local commanders. They would know it better, those who are
Sure.
investigating it. But the other possibilities, the information about the movement and the route to be taken by these troops was leaked, and somebody laid
Let
well planned ambush to take on the leadership. And I
Let
think
me
uh,
let me
yeah.
let me take this point because it's a very important point. SP Vaid there arguing that either a source was compromised or information, classified information, may have been leaked. And I want to take that to Brigadier Thapar. Also to Brigadier Thapar, you've heard both General Hasnain and SP Vaid. Your tweets, wondered why you need to have senior officers at the front. I would still want to understand from you, isn't that something that has always been the tradition of our army, of our police force? Brigadier Thapar.
So, firstly, what Mr. Vaid said about intelligence leak, quite possible. I'm sure details will emerge if this has happened. They will come out sooner or later, and we should be able to catch whoever is the culprit there in this regard. Now, coming to my point, I agree with what General Atas has said, what you've said, leading from the front. That's been the tradition of the Indian Army. But see, there is a recent trend of past couple of years because these CEOs are younger. At this stage, I was still a senior company commander, and today these guys are CEOs. That's the system has changed. They are young, they are impetuous, uh, they are full of josh. I would say lack a little maturity in certain regards, which comes with age and experience. And plus, there are very limited opportunities in the valley today. So any operation, he wants to prove himself, prove his worth, prove his battalion, prove his everything. Now, the CO has 18 to 20 officers. In our time, there were 2, 3 small operations going on simultaneously in the same area, and the CO was there, very much present in the area, but he was conducting operations, coordinating everything, and where required, if there was something, someplace he felt that something was not going as per his requirement, he moved there to influence operations. But today I see the CO invariably moving right in front with the company commander. You let the company, you've given a task to a company commander, let him accomplish it. If he runs into problem, if he gets bogged down, then you go and say, okay, what happened now, this is, let's do this. But as events have brought out, he was probably going with the company commander right in front while there was still no contact. They came into some kind of ambush, or they were surprised. That is what I'm saying. CEOs, it
Okay.
comes you have you feel anguish. I'm not saying the CEO should lead from the front. There have been cases of Vijay, of most of the operations they lead in front. But to lose a seasoned leader, when you lose a CEO, the effect on morale is on the entire battalion. But till you redeem yourself after some time, which could take a month to this thing.
I'll take your argument back to the panel. I just want to bring in Professor Mattoo, as a Kashmiri, but also as someone who spent decades studying the conflict. We were at a point when this kind of sort of the militancy was actually on a downward slope. And now you have the TRF, which is nothing but a Lashkar-e-Taiba offshoot, sort of quite brazenly claiming responsibility for what has happened. Uh, how do you see the implications of what's happened, the larger implications, Professor Mattoo?
Barkha, thank you very much for inviting me. Let me also, first of all, pay my deep tributes to the three martyred officers of the security forces, including Colonel Manpreeet Singh, Major Ashish and Deputy SP Bhat. They have really shown and demonstrated valor and bravery and given the ultimate sacrifice. I think a granular post-mortem of the incident, at least in my understanding, should wait till we have further information, till the operation is over. But there are three broad lessons, broad themes that we should focus on. One, of course, is intelligence, and that's been pointed out. Was there a failure of intelligence? We have seen the armed forces or the terrorists being on the back foot, but this is clearly now a demonstration that somewhere, sometime, it's the intelligence is formed, there were double agents, or the information supplied was false or wrong. That needs investigation. Is this just a purely tactical issue, or is this representative of a general growing failure of intelligence in the valley? Secondly, We've seen, as I said, the terrorists on the back foot, but now south of Pir Panjal, in Pulwama, in Kulgam, Rajouri, in Punch, we have seen the TRF become more active. Is this a final act of desperado, or really to try and do what you can at the last minute when you're fighting a end game, or is this now a new escalation? Uh, that is important because once you will begin to understand the strategic implications, because the strategic implications are the following. Uh, and there could be different readings of this, but there was a general feeling that Pakistan, given its internal situation, given the internal turmoil that it finds itself in, was unwilling or incapable of escalating the situation in the valley. Does this suggest that Pakistan is now switching the tap on? If that happens, what are the consequences? Of course, we all know that the counterinsurgency grid and our security forces have command all over the situation, and no one can doubt either the capabilities or the morale of the Indian security forces, the Indian Army, and the J&K police. But if Pakistan has now decided really to escalate the situation to a point beyond which we were used to, at least if this summer was good evidence, then what are our responses going to be? And that brings me to the question that you raised, for instance. One, of course, is the fact that there has to be a security response to the Lashkar-e-Taiba and all its shadowy outfits within the valley, and other militant organization, terrorist organization, which may become active. Secondly, what should be our political response to Pakistan? Should it be then in terms of sporting ties? Does it need in terms of diplomatic messaging, or has to be, as the Modi government has often demonstrated, a tit for tat? You do this to us, we'll escalate the cost across the LC, across the border, and demonstrate to you that you cannot get away with this. So, frankly speaking, I find the granular analysis perhaps premature. Of course, you have three extremely experienced people from the field, so they are capable of doing that, but perhaps that can wait until the operation is ended.
I think you raise two excellent and very relevant larger points. One, will the Modi government respond with tit for tat as it has been known to do? Of course, at a place and time of its own choosing. And two, has there been a shift? Has the terror tap been turned on again? Was it kept off? Is it been turned on again? I think these are all questions to raise. Let's also remind you that there has been a parallel encounter in Rajouri, and we have lost a rifleman there. We have also, in the last 2 days, lost a canine hero. And I mention all of this because the taps are being turned on in more than one place. Now, I want to bring in General Hasnain. I'm sure you want to respond both to the granular questions raised by Professor Mattoo, as well as you want to talk about the larger point on how to respond to Pakistan.
Barkha, there's a lot of things to talk on in this.
Yes.
Firstly, Vaid Saab's point, I entirely endorse. You cannot rule out this aspect of not an intelligence failure, but an intelligence compromise, as he said. The last time I remember, in the year 2000, Colonel Chauhan, 21RR, was similarly, along with his commander, Brigadier Bobby Shergill, were also killed in the same way. In fact, the source had laid a IED for them on the route on which he was leading them, actually. So this kind of a thing has happened in the past. His experience and my experience, both of us, it is very clear that these kind of things do happen. On the granularity of it, I entirely with Professor Amitabh Mattoo that we need to wait for the operation to be completed. I'm sure lots of things will emerge from this, lots of lessons will emerge from this. But what I will look at is what is the nature of operation. Was this operation a deliberate ploy by the terrorists? One thing you can think of is it a deliberate effort to try and take revenge on 19RR? Reminding you of the fact that 19RR is the unit which killed Burhan Wani. Also, right? And this is almost the same area, almost the same area. That is one aspect. Or was this just a chance encounter? Or it was based on an intelligence input? If it was based on an intelligence input and a chance encounter, the possibility that this was something deliberate planned by the other side gets ruled out, and therefore the response perhaps may be a little different. Now, each time you've had 5 soldiers who were killed in Rajouri on an attack on one vehicle. 5 soldiers were killed, paratroopers were killed subsequently in a search operation. We did not respond in any way because these were tactical operations without any strategic messages. This operation, we'll have to wait to see the outcome, and we will also have to examine it a little more deeply, and it will have to be done very, very quickly to establish what exactly is the nature of operation. Has this really crossed our what is called the threshold level as such? The Modi government is known to have sent a clear message across that they will respond any time that a deliberate attempt to target us is carried out by the terrorists in this manner. However, they will be circumspect. The government will be circumspect about making sure that it does not have to respond each time. It will respond at an appropriate time of its own choosing, at a place and time of its own choosing. This is an aspect which needs to be remembered.
Let me ask you this. There is a lot of conversation online about cricket. Do you separate the cricket from what's happening, or does it seem callous to go ahead with the possible India-Pakistan match on the weekend while bodies are coming home of our soldiers, of our police officers? So let me actually take this a first quick response from General Hasnain and take that question around the panel with a reminder that Russia. Let's look at Russia, Ukraine. In Russia, Ukraine, you have for people who say don't mix sports and politics or don't mix sports with geopolitics, you do have the Russian athletes today not able to participate in the way that they once were able to. So I'm just putting the question out there in deference to the larger experience of all of you. General Hasnain, I'll start with you.
I know it's a paradox exactly, actually, in a place like Delhi, for example, to see the bodies coming in here for funerals. They mostly come through Delhi and are taken to other places, etc. And at the same time, people probably looking forward to the semi-final match or the final match on the 17th of September. And now it's a very difficult question to actually a decision on the part of the government at this time. If we just remind ourselves, the government has already taken a decision not to play with Pakistan on bilateral terms anywhere. We are not doing it. We are at the moment playing in the Asia Cup. And we have also decided that we will not play in Pakistan and Pakistan will not play in India. We are playing on a third party ground. So whether we now want to go one step beyond and ensure that we have no sporting ties at all with Pakistan, even in the Olympics, if Pakistan is participating in the Olympics, we will not participate. I am not sure how exactly the government would like to respond to that. That would be really going over the top, I would say, to an extent. But I think at the moment, most of the responses which are taking place are for the moment, because this is it's an anguish which is being caused in the minds and the hearts of the people of India all over when they see these kind of photographs and these images which go around everywhere. I think we are already doing the appropriate thing by not talking to Pakistan. Mr. Farooq Abdullah, I was seeing on television, has once again advised that we should talk to Pakistan. Now, these are amazingly stupid things. I would not even think about a thing like that of talking to Pakistan, etc. Our policy is very clear. Diplomatically, we are shunning Pakistan completely. On the sports field, we are shunning Pakistan completely. But when it comes to internationally, perhaps we may have to continue. Otherwise, we ourselves will isolate ourselves in a very great way from the rest of the sporting world.
Let me bring in Professor Mattoo on the same question, and then I'll come to SP Vaid and Brigadier Thapar. My colleague Zafar Iqbal is also on the ground in Anantnag. Professor Mattoo, you raised the geopolitical question. Is A, Pakistan turning on the tap? B, how will the Modi government react? C, what does this do to an already completely damaged equation? Go ahead, Professor Mattoo.
Yeah, Barkha, I think, agree with the wise words of General Hasnain. I think you punish the establishment of Pakistan, the people who are behind the terrorist organizations, who are responsible for the self-destructive policies of Pakistan, but don't punish the people of Pakistan who are as anguished with the situation in Pakistan, and certainly not artists and sports people. But that's been my consistent policy, that you make a distinction between the state of Pakistan, which is a Frankenstein's monster created from the terrible partition of India, and has been consistently like that in various shapes and forms. But the people of Pakistan need not be punished. In fact, we need to disconnect the people of Pakistan, the sports people, the artists, And often artists and sports people, to stay alive, to stay relevant, may have to make statements occasionally which might seem like anti-India. But I don't think bilateral sporting ties or multilateral sporting ties should be undermined, and certainly not reduce yourself to the status of Pakistan. Pakistan, yes, the Pakistanis realize now, is so marginal uh, that we should not, beyond a point, try and do a tit for tat in terms of culture and sporting ties. Do a more than a tit for tat for those responsible. Cross the border, cross the LSE, and demonstrate what costs they'll have to pay, but not, as I said, frankly speaking, and I'm not speaking like a liberal, I'm speaking purely as a realist. There is no benefit from punishing the sports people if Pakistan continue, let the match go on.
So you say cross the border, the LOC if you have to, but don't mix up the people. And that is one narrative. And there is the other narrative, which is that it is callous to be playing cricket while this is happening. I want to actually bring in Brigadier Thapar and SP Vaid. SP Vaid, to you first. Vaid, sir?
Yeah, Barkha, as far as people of Pakistan are concerned, hello,
Yes, sir.
am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as far as Pakistan's establishment is concerned, I don't see any change of heart in Pakistan's establishment, and India has to be prepared for a long war, covert war, which Pakistan's establishment, for its own survival, will continue. And in spite of economy going down, in spite of so much of hardship, its own people, it doesn't care even it's about its own people. Forget Kashmir and India. Its own people, her own people are dying of hunger. Look at the conditions in you. I keep watching on the Pakistan TV. Look at their condition. How much hardship they are facing. The establishment has its own agenda. It does not care about the difficulties of people. So, as far as ties are concerned, cricket ties, yes, the sentiment is very clear in the country. Bilaterals, absolutely no, and I think already Modi government is very clear on that. But yes, multilateral engagements, then you get isolated. If you don't play a World Cup, then you will be out of the World Cup. So uh, you may have during Asia Cup or World Cup, you may have to face Pakistan. So that you can't avoid. But no bilaterals, very clear, no engagements with Pakistan's establishment, with Pakistan's, and as regards Dr. Farooq Abdullah's statement today, who do you talk to? The establishment there continues with the policy of 1,000 cuts. Who do you talk to? Uh, Talking to the prime minister has no meaning. He is just a puppet.
Yeah.
Whether it is Imran Khan or whether today's caretaker prime minister, who do you talk to? So I think the Modi government will take its own call. What is to be done?
Yes, I think one of the things that is very important to watch out for is that what General Hasnain also said. It's not that every time there's a terror attack in real time there is going to be a tit for tat security response. It is going to be at a time and place of India's choosing. Brigadier Thapar, just before I get you, Zafar, very briefly, we hear, and in your previous reports you did say that two terrorists have been encircled, have been trapped. Is there any word yet on when this operation might be brought to a close, and when the terrorists who inflicted these fatalities could be brought to justice? Zafar, briefly, on the ground in
Yes,
Anantnag?
yes, Barkha, I can tell you that I'm very close to the spot where this encounter is taking place. just there on that mountain in those thick forests, if we are hearing lots of gunshots and big explosions taking place. I don't know whether you're hearing them or not, but the situation is extremely tense here. There was a lull for an hour or so, but as we know, the security forces have cordoned off this area. They're zeroing in onto the militants. We're told that it's a group of 2 Lashkar militants. Remember, TRF has taken the responsibility, which is nothing but Lashkar. 2 Lashkar militants led by their self-styled commander Uzair Khan. You can hear those gunshots and that firing that's going on. It's happening very close to where we are standing. Actually, all the media teams are here, and they seem to have developed some sort of a contact with the militants. Why it may take some more time? It's going to be a prolonged operation. You can see how dense these forests are. It's a mountain. These are dense forests. It's a steep incline. It's going to take some more time. Obviously, security forces are ready for that. They are not ready to take more casualties. There are already 3 casualties. 3 people have been killed, 3 security force personnel. So they are moving very cautiously, but this entire area has been cordoned off, and they're slowly moving into the area where militants, probably these terrorists, are hiding. As you can hear from those gunshots and
Right.
explosions, there is an encounter, live encounter, which is raging on just behind me on that mountain.
All right, Zafar, we let you go and get those reports. All visuals shown on this broadcast are deferred, but we are close to encircling the terrorists. That is the word from Anantnag. Brigadier Thapar, General Hasnain, I want to give you the last words. Brigadier Thapar, on the issue of what should happen with Pakistan next, I think SP Vaid, General Hasnain, Professor Mattoo seem to be of the view that multilateral equations cannot be avoided on sporting bodies. Bilateral cricket is out of the question. But there are also those who say that it would be very unseemly to be playing cricket over the weekend in a week where this has happened. Brigadier Thapar.
See, Barkha, I agree with them. The popular sentiment today seems to be that why cricket. But I want to ask, what has this achieved? No cricket, no Bollywood. It just affected a few people. Yes, it has probably affected the Pak team to a certain extent, and a few Bollywood or characters from artists from Pakistan. It has not affected the Pakistan government per se or establishment per se. You've got to do something like Balakot, what we did, which shook them up. Maybe today, I don't expect, as brought out, that any tit for tat action here, military action. But there are a lot of other things you can do in trade, in regional balances, and make sure that Pakistan gets the lesson that you can't mess with India forever. 30 years they've been doing it. What have we achieved by banning them? We've not achieved much. So whatever has to be done, it has to be substantial.
General Hasnain, now here is the last word for you with a question. Pakistan isn't going to permanently turn off the terror tap. Given that, how many substantive interventions can a country make? Of course, that will depend on the security situation. But you said something very, very, very wise that I think we haven't discussed enough. It can't be a real-time tit for tat. This is not a seesaw battle. This is real-life battlefields that we're talking about. So last word to you, sir.
See, Barkha, we cannot be unrealistic about this emerging situation. I remember as a brigade commander also, I was told many times that be prepared to retaliate the same night if something happens on the line of control. I used to wonder, how can you give orders of this kind? Because at the end of the day, you got to make sure that whatever you are doing is going to be effective and is going to get you results which are conducive to what your aims are. The army, we always work based upon our aims. The tit for tat is the worst possible thing you can think of. It has to be thought through. What happened in the case of the surgical strikes and post Pulwama, the Balakot strike, it took 10, 12 days in which a tremendous amount of planning, a tremendous amount of weighing of the balance together was done perhaps, and at the end of it, only the decisions were taken, which was the right approach. Very, very effective strategic approach. Now, we will have to live with this for some time. I still suggest, what I feel is that we should not expect unrealistically that terrorist actions in the valley and the rest of the Jammu and Kashmir are going to come to an end at any time. This is an unrealistic expectation by the people of India. They think that the 5th of August 2019 effectively shut out proxy war from India. No, This is going to carry on and going to carry on for very long. What we have to work on is trying to make sure that you make the best for ourselves. I think Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha Sahab is doing a wonderful job as far as development is concerned. The security forces are doing a wonderful job overall. I still suggest to the Government of India we should not reduce the strength of security forces anywhere for the moment, because we can see any bit of imbalance can result in things going out of hand, as has happened in Rajouri in certain instances about 6 months ago. So this is something we should persist with. We should not go by this adage as if normalcy has been achieved. No, the absence of violence is not normalcy. Normalcy has to be defined. We have to look at the aims of normalcy. How do you want to achieve it at particular stages as we go along? Someone, a good police, senior police intellectual, that like Sahab, we have with us, should be able to put this across, in very good ways to the leadership. The unified command of Kashmir, that's probably the best place where you find everyone being able to bring their best brains together to be able to recommend things to the Government of India. And from time to time, this review must continue. So at the end of the day, I still say I'm not living with unrealistic expectations. The armed forces, the Jammu Kashmir police, CRPF have to live with this and continue with this. And you can't be expecting a government, your government, to always be reacting to everything. No.
Absolutely.
We have to make sure that we try and neutralize the capability that Pakistan can have inside the valley, which means dismantling every possible network you can think of. The complete narcotics networks, the overground worker networks, the media networks, the financial networks, all these have to be dismantled, because on them ride the capabilities of the terrorists and that of Pakistan.
Right. I think we would all agree with the last comments made by General Hasnain. We leave it there. It is a grim day for India, and that encounter is going to be taken to its logical conclusion. That is for sure. We leave it there. We just lost SP Vaid in the last couple of minutes, but thank you, Mr. Vaid. Thank you to General Hasnain, to Brigadier Thapar, to Professor Mattoo. You are dealing, we are dealing, the country is dealing with an adversary where this proxy war is written into the sort of very, I don't know, the instrument of statecraft by the Pakistani state is to use terror as an instrument of influence, and you're dealing with that, and it isn't going to be episodic. I think, General Hasnain, you're warning us for a long haul battle, and that's what it is. Salutations again to the men who've lost their lives in the line of duty, and prayers for those who are still in hospital battling injuries, that the news is more fortunate for them. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and to our audience, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.